Everyone keeps asking why this case went quiet, but here's what most people missed. The RCMP didn't just keep searching. They quietly confirmed two pieces of evidence that were never framed as breakthroughs, yet both could explain how Lilly and Jack vanished without a trace. No arrest, no suspect. But once you see how these details fit together, it becomes clear why investigators are still rebuilding this case from the ground up. And one of these clues was almost dismissed entirely. Let's rewind, but only to the details that still matter. Lilly, 6 years old, and Jack, just 4, disappeared from a rural home in Nova Scotia under circumstances that immediately unsettled investigators. This was not an urban neighborhood. This was not a place with constant foot traffic, nearby stores, or crowds where 2 young children could simply blend in unnoticed. Their home sat in a sparsely populated area, surrounded by woods, uneven terrain, and long stretches of quiet road. When the alarm was raised, time mattered, and authorities responded as if it did. Within hours, massive ground and air searches were launched. RCMP officers, search and rescue teams, helicopters, drones, tracking dogs, and local volunteers flooded the area. Wooded paths were combed. Properties were checked. Waterways, ditches, and nearby structures were examined again and again. This was not a brief or symbolic effort. It was one of the most intensive search operations the region had seen in years. And yet, as the days passed, something became impossible to ignore. There were no confirmed sightings of Lilly or Jack after the initial time window surrounding their disappearance. No neighbor reported seeing them walking along the road. No driver came forward with dashcam footage placing them elsewhere. No trail camera captured them moving through the woods. For a case involving 2 small children, that absence spoke loudly. Even more troubling was what wasn't found. No clear footprints leading away from the home. No discarded clothing conclusively tied to movement. No physical evidence that could explain where they went or how they left the area. Despite the scale of the search, investigators could not reconstruct a simple path of wandering children getting lost. The environment should have left something behind. It didn't. For weeks, public discussion revolved around a single, almost instinctive question. Did the children wander off? It was familiar. It felt explainable. It fit past cases people remembered. But while the public debated that theory, investigators were quietly asking something very different. Not where did they wander, but what doesn't fit. They examined timelines instead of terrain. They scrutinized silence instead of footprints. They questioned how 2 young children could move through such an area without leaving a trace, without being seen, without triggering a single verified lead. And that shift, subtle, unannounced, but deliberate, is where this case truly began to change. This detail wasn't dramatic, which is exactly why it matters. Long after the initial searches quieted and public attention began to drift, RCMP confirmed they were actively examining a witness report that had existed in the background of the case. It wasn't a sensational tip. It didn't come with video footage, names, or definitive proof, but it described something investigators could not ignore. 2 children seen walking along a roadway, near a vehicle stopped with the door open, with a woman positioned close to the car. On its surface, the report didn't scream certainty. It didn't confirm identities. It didn't establish intent. And it didn't provide a clear sequence of events. But what mattered wasn't what the report proved. It was what it introduced. Here's the key part. Police did not dismiss it. They also didn't confirm it. Instead, they did something far more revealing. They reevaluated it. In missing child investigations, dismissed tips disappear quietly. They are filtered out early, logged, and rarely mentioned again. Reevaluated tips are different. They are revisited because new context makes them more relevant than they first appeared. And when RCMP acknowledged this report publicly, it signaled that the details still aligned with unanswered questions in case. Why does this matter? Because it challenges one of the earliest assumptions, that Lilly and Jack never left the immediate area on their own. If 2 children were seen walking along a roadway, that suggests movement beyond the property, beyond the woods, and into a space where timing, visibility, and interaction become critical. It also introduces the idea of a transition point, a moment where the children are visible and then no longer are. That concept matters deeply in investigations, because disappearances don't happen in a vacuum. They happen between moments, between seen and unseen. between one location and the next. A vehicle stopped with a door open represents exactly that kind of threshold, a place where circumstances can change quickly without witnesses fully understanding what they're seeing. This also explains why investigators expanded their timeline reconstruction. They weren't just retracing footsteps. They were trying to align movement, opportunity, and silence to see where the story stops making sense. Not proof, but not noise either. And in cases like this, that distinction can change everything. If that detail sounds small, wait until you hear the second one, because this one involves physical evidence. Objects don't move themselves, but this one raised questions police still haven't answered publicly. Investigators confirmed that a pink blanket belonging to Lilly was found away from the home, not inside the house, not neatly placed nearby, but located at a distance that immediately caught the attention of search teams. Later, another portion of what was confirmed to be the same blanket was discovered closer to the driveway, contained inside a bag. 2 locations, 1 personal item, and no clear explanation connecting the two. On its own, a blanket might seem insignificant. Children carry things. Items get dropped. But investigators don't look at objects emotionally. They look at how those objects behave in the environment. And this is where the concern begins. Search dogs were brought in to track scent from the blanket. In cases where children wander naturally, scent transfer usually tells a story. It moves outward. It weakens gradually. It follows terrain, footsteps, and time. But here, dogs did not establish a clear, continuous scent trail leading away from the blanket locations. There was no obvious path that matched how 2 small children would typically move through the area. That combination matters. Because when an item appears separated from expected movement patterns, investigators stop treating it as a drop possession and start treating it as a marker. A marker doesn't explain what happened. It points to where something may have changed. If the children had wandered off together, investigators would expect one of 2 things. Either the blanket remains with them for some distance, or the scent leads away from where it was discarded. Neither scenario was clearly supported here. Instead, the blanket's presence raised questions about timing, handling, and placement. The fact that one portion was found away from the home while another was located near the driveway adds another layer. It introduces a possibility that the blanket didn't simply fall where it lay, but may have been moved, separated, or handled in a way that disrupted natural scent patterns. That doesn't automatically indicate foul play, but it does complicate explanations rooted in chance alone. This doesn't prove abduction. It doesn't confirm outside involvement. But it challenges the idea of a straightforward, uninterrupted wandering scenario. Because physical evidence doesn't just exist. It interacts with space, time, and behavior. And when those interactions don't line up, investigators take notice. In this case, the blanket didn't answer questions. It created them. Here's what ties both hidden clues together. Both suggest movement beyond the initial search assumption, and that alone is significant. Early efforts were built around a contained radius, a belief that Lilly and Jack either remained close to home or moved outward in a predictable, natural pattern. But both the witness report and the pink blanket evidence point towards something less linear. They introduce the possibility that the children's movements extended beyond what was first believed, and that those movements may not have followed a simple path through the woods or surrounding land. Both clues also force investigators to rebuild the timeline rather than close it. That distinction matters. When evidence confirms an early theory, timelines shrink, events become fixed, windows narrow. But when evidence doesn't fit cleanly, investigators do the opposite. They widen the frame. They revisit timestamps. They recheck who was where and when. They reconsider moments that were once assumed irrelevant. The fact that RCMP acknowledged adjusting how they reconstruct the sequence of events signals that these details did not resolve uncertainty, they sustained it. And neither clue has been ruled out. That may sound procedural, but it's critical. In active investigations, unhelpful leads are formally set aside. They stop influencing strategy. They stop shaping analysis. When police say a detail has not been dismissed, they are quietly saying it still aligns with unanswered questions. Confirmation isn't the only measure of importance, relevance is. And both of these details remain relevant. A witness sighting that introduces a transition point. A personal item that behaves unlike a simple lost object. Separately, Each raises questions. Together, they reinforce a pattern, moments where the story shifts and certainty breaks down. Cold cases don't get quietly reconstructed unless something still fits. Investigators don't invest time and resources revisiting old ground without reason. They do it when pieces still connect, when details refuse to be explained away, when silence itself becomes informative. And right now, these two details still do. They don't provide answers. They keep the case open. And in an investigation like this, that may be the most important signal of all. No arrests, no accusations, just two overlooked pieces of evidence that refuse to disappear, just like the questions in this case. From the outside, the absence of arrest can feel like stagnation. To the public, silence often looks like failure. But in complex investigations, especially those involving missing